When game masters run pre-written adventure modules or when writers craft stories in established worlds, we often have a plethora of existing creatures that we can choose from. However, many of us also have the itch to sit down and flex our creative muscle by designing our own monsters and creatures. And that is where tools like Nord Games' The Oracle Monster Generator come into play. As with my other reviews, I feel that it is important to start off with my usual message. This review is not sponsored. I backed this product on BackerKit and waited eagerly for it to reach my doorstep. It's been in my library for a good long while now, and I believe it is time to give it the credit that it deserves. But the bottom line on this is that Nord Games has received no word from me regarding this, I have received none from them, and this is just a small step I can take to bring in attention to some third-party materials for game masters and writers. With all that cleared up, let's take a look at the Oracle Monster Generator. Perhaps something that is a bit more unique for this review is that I can actually showcase this as a physical product. The Monster Generator comes in a fairly large box with some very distinctive artwork. It is a system-agnostic tool, as it proclaims, but I would say that its contents do skew more toward D&D and Pathfinder in general. Once we open the box, you can see that we have 7 slots for different sets of cards. Now, one thing that you'll notice is that there are some labels added here that give a little bit more context in the container to clarify what environment we are working with. These are the labels that I personally added, and I made it so that it would be a little bit easier for organization. I will admit it would be nice to have had something along those lines already in there, but in terms of just creating a product that can be sold and it's not going to have exorbitant costs, clearly that's not something that could be done. So I understand, would have been helpful, but that's why I added those in, and I would highly recommend adding those in for yourself as well. For each of these environments, we have 5 separate concepts that can be explored to help further define the creature we are creating, including what type of creature it is, what their behavior and archetypes are, a special ability that sets them apart from the rest, and an interesting factoid we can use for world building. And for each of these categories, there are 4 sub-details that you can choose from to design a unique creature. Or you can just roll randomly and let the dice influence your creation in a unique and possibly unexpected ways. And if you've seen my other reviews here, you know that I am a huge fan of rolling on random tables to discover a new world building opportunity. One interesting bit is that the backs of these cards tell a story. For example, the forest group shows a traveler approaching a forest woman. Maybe she's a leshy or a plant, maybe a dryad, and then she, at that point, activates her magic and uses it to entangle the traveler in vines. She then approaches the terrified person, and as she does, you can see in the background that this is definitely not the first person that she has snatched. Now, this is a bit dark, but each of these cards decks have a similar flow to illustrate the order in which Nord Games expects you to progress. However, I do have my own preferred method, which you'll see in a little bit. That's pretty much the extent of what you need to know about the concept of these cards. Now let's see them in practice. Let's create a monster for one of these environments. So for this section, I'm going to choose to create a monster for a forest environment. This is going to be a quick and dirty example where I have no idea what's coming up, but I'm going to use the answers from these 5 cards to at least put together some basic questions about the world. First, we have the monster type. I'll shuffle these really quickly and we'll see what we're working with. They do follow standard creature types as listed in D&D, such as aberration, beast, construct, dragon, elemental, fae, fiend, giant, monstrosity, ooze, plant, and undead. The only 2 that are not included are humanoid and celestial, which does make sense because we're creating monsters after all, not characters. However, the celestials being missing is an interesting choice because you could do a lot with celestials, but that's just on my side at least. So let's see what we end up with here. We are going to be working with a beast, and beasts are non-humanoid creatures that are a natural part of the fantasy ecology. Some of them have magical powers, but most are unintelligent and lack any society or language. It's pretty much what we would expect for having a beast creature in this existence. So let me go ahead. I'm just going to put this card on top of this stack here at least. Next is the archetype, which looks more into depth into what type of creature we would be interacting with. Is it a support creature that empowers or enhances other mobs around it? Does it lurk in the shadows with the intention of ambushing and avoiding a full-on confrontation? Well, we know once we turn this card over, so let's do it. All right. This is a friendly beast monster. So friendlies are creatures that help groups of adventurers in some way, rather than fighting them or acting antagonistically toward them. They have something to offer characters, from information to assistance. Okay, so we're working with a beast as well as a friendly beast. This will be tough to parse, I'm going to be honest. But let's see if we can maybe find another solution. Because okay, good job, girl. Good job. Drop it. Sorry for the quick excursion. My cat decided that she was going to steal and drag this into another room. Following that, we can dive now into the creature's behavior. While you might expect this to be an overview of what it does in daily life, the reality of this is that this is focused more on what it's doing at the moment of the encounter. Some of these are standard, like is tracking prey or taking aim at something. Others are a bit unusual, like performing. It definitely has a wide variety of ways that this can go. And with that in mind, I'm just going to pull this card. Speak of the devil. Performing. The creature's engaging in some kind of performance, perhaps as a practice for itself or to entertain a captivated audience. Okay. So we have a beast that's friendly and performing. Okay. Topical, because of how my cat has been acting lately. Let's just say that this is a giant cat that is in the forest, is very friendly, wants to give attention and everything to everyone that's coming by. Not necessarily that it wants to give information or anything, but is putting on this performance of, oh, I'm super cute, I want to be friendly and be around people. So it starts putting on this performance like it's jumping around trying to catch things. This is the culprit, by the way. She's super cute and she knows it, but she's just trying to be, oh, okay, you don't want to be okay, whoa. She did not like that at all. But while we are creating a monster, we should also be asking ourselves, what makes this creature special? Why is it different from what already exists? To answer that, let's turn our attention to the special abilities cards. These cards are all about numerous tricks and tools that the creatures we are making can use to stand out. Maybe it regenerates health, maybe it teleports, or maybe it has access to some form of magic. Whatever the case, this is the next step to building a unique monster. However, in your tabletop game, you may need to rebalance some stats around to make it a little bit less difficult and more close to what your players actually can face. And with that, oh, this cat has a toxin. The creature has a toxin which it can apply to foes in some way, such as through the use of a stinger, spray, or fangs. Let's just say claws. So yeah, with that in mind, we got this friendly cat, but they can protect themselves with this toxin. All right, something that's worth noting at least about them. Finally, there is one more card to pull, and that is the intrigue card. This brings a bit more of the world building aspect to the table, as it further defines their reason for existing, or the reason that they are being targeted by outside forces. Maybe they are an important religious symbol, or perhaps it carries a dangerous virus that anything that comes into contact with it can contract. It may also just be that this monster is either unusually large or small compared to others like it. We won't know until we pick a card. So, historically, this creature has some unusual history that might precede it, or that could be learned through interacting with it. Okay, so with that in mind then, most of these things can be used together. So with that in mind, let's say, for example, that this cat is performing and is a very friendly cat, loves to be loved, but in order to share that history, because it's a beast, it doesn't have the language skills to be able to share any of that information with people. It goes about showing its history through a performance. So an interpretive dance kitty, perhaps. And then it has a way to protect itself, and it tries not to use it, but sometimes it gets provoked. So there you have it. We've gone and made the bones of a monster really quick here. But you can go even deeper with specific options, which you can see on each card, like right here. But choosing options is just one way to proceed. Sometimes we can go about this in a much more fun method that is entirely out of our control. Let's hope that the dice gods favor me a bit here. We get something that is a bit cohesive, or maybe not. Maybe it'll be more fun if we put disparate ideas together. But to make sure you believe me when I say this is absolutely not set up in advance, I will roll for everything. And the first step is to select a biome. And to do that, we're just going to roll a d6 here. That rolled up out of the tray. All right, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We are working with the mountain biome. So there are 12 cards per category. So we'll roll a d12 and we'll see what part of the stack we go down to when we're doing this. So first up is going to be the creature type. And the creatures are going to be, like I said before, almost everything except for celestial and humanoid. So I'm going to roll for the card, and then I'm also going to roll a d4 at the same time, and that's going to give us the very specific information on that card that we are going to be using. So let's see how this goes. Alrighty, so we ended up with card number 5 for monster type, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and we are number 1 on this. So we have a giant, and it's going to be a stone giant in particular. All right, so now we're working on the archetype. What kind of a stone giant are we doing here? We are going to be doing card number 9 and option 4. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9. This is a defender, and it is a defender that number 4 is soak. So this creature takes damage on behalf of their allies. They might have a magical tie to their ally or some kind of symbiosis with them. Ooh, okay. I dig it. I like that. All right. And then with that now, we need to pull up the behavior. What is the behavior of this creature? All right. Card number 9 again, but option 3 this time. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And this one is a descending. So the creature's descending from the mountain safely, but at great speed. It might be fleeing from something such as a predator or a natural disaster, but according to this, it is using a vehicle or a mount to descend. It might be riding on a giant goat that can clamber down the cliff face, or be using a zip line. Ooh, I like the idea of the zip line, just for something a little bit different. So maybe, okay. We have our defender stone giant that's going to be coming down on the zip line. So I'm going to say that because of that, it's here to soak up attacks. So it's seeing one of its allies is about to get into a fight with some of the player characters, perhaps erroneously, not something that was supposed to be happening necessarily. But with that in mind, I believe that that could be something where it comes zipping down the mountain in order to provide that sort of protective shield for it. Iffy. We don't know necessarily. But now let's see what makes the monster special. Maybe that will give us a little bit more things to work on. So let's go ahead and roll our 2 dice. And we have number 8, option 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Oh. So this creature is deadly. There is something about the creature which is particularly deadly, making it a terrifying thing to encounter. And in this case, disintegration. The creature is able to disintegrate other creatures and perhaps even huge portions of the mountainside. This is a really mind-boggling one, even for me. I have no idea. But, okay, last but not least, what's an interesting detail about this creature? Why is it, perhaps, that this is such a dangerous, disintegrating monster? Oh, number 11. So I'm just going to go to the very bottom here, flip over to second to last. Bearer. This creature is the bearer of something, an item or otherwise, that marks it out as special in some way. It might not know what it bears. Well, according to this, it bears an heirloom passed down to it or stolen from another. The heirloom might have magical abilities as well as sentimental value. Alright, so that's going to be definitely where this disintegration ability comes from. And just like that, we've got ourselves a unique, fleshed out monster. Now, we would need to either add it to our story or our campaign, maybe by adapting an existing creature, in this case the stone giant, or we'd have to develop an entirely new stat block to accommodate the fact that it's a defender that soaks up damage, but also has this disintegrating object, probably like a rod of some sort. But either way, that process is outside the scope of this review. After playing with these options and demonstrating them live, what would I say are my opinions on this product? Well, for starters, I love that this is a building block for creativity. It doesn't take the onus away from the creator when using it. Sure, you might discover that you have to write about a fairy or its unique abilities, or you need to take a stone giant that has a defending side to it that also has a disintegration rod of some sort. But it's the way that you can stitch the details together into a cohesive whole that will then fit your need. And even if what you pull or you roll doesn't match what you're looking for, no one's going to take away your creative abilities or lock up your dice for choosing to switch to something that suits your work better. Based on that, I feel confident granting this a 9 out of 10, with it losing a star just because we are a bit restricted on the options that are provided for each of them, and we're missing a category for Celestial, which I think is a missed opportunity, because you can come across Celestials in the wild, and you should. Then you haven't explained what they're doing there, and that could have been something that the monster generator could do. But, okay, granted, when I'm talking about the options on each of the cards, a set of 4 choices per card is a fantastic amount. However, variety is the name of the game, and being limited to 4 creatures per type means that you can only use it so many times before you have to move on. 4 options per ability means on that same card you don't have that same whole spectrum of options available. But that said, this remains an excellent tool to stir the creative juices and develop ideas, whether as a writer or a game master. However, I do say all of this with the caveat that these cards are focused more on the fantasy theme, particularly the best-selling tabletop elements of D&D and Pathfinder. Someone writing a sci-fi novel or playing Starfinder may discover that they get less mileage than my glowing review would characterize. Now, the review is technically done, but I wanted to take a second to shamelessly plug something I'm working on. Trust me, it's topical to the conversation we started here, because one of the things that I truly enjoy doing is designing monsters, and I'm pleased to bring to the table some creatures I have been developing, the Bruxe. These undead creatures, inspired by Portuguese legends, answer the question, what if we had vampires that were also spellcasters? What you get is a dark creature that became an undead bloodsucker by choice, designed for Kobold Press's Black Flag role-playing game system, and, by extension, easily integrated into 5e or 5.5e D&D. This supplement brings a new dramatic evil to your table, perfect for a gothic horror campaign, and is now available on DriveThruRPG and dramaticdragons.com, links in the description. Oh, and for everyone that has stayed through this spiel, you can use the code Bruxe15 to get a 15% discount on dramaticdragons.com until April 19th. Go forth and add a little extra drama to your tabletop games. As always, thank you for watching, and I look forward to going into detail on more tabletop stories and products with you. Cheers.